If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least...
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there because that was a weird situation and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'd go a long way toward that one. The other stuff I would.
Donald Trump's name appears again and again and again and again in the new document dump that just took place of the grand jury documents relating to criminal proceedings against Jeffrey Epstein. You'll recall back in February, the Florida legislature enacted a law, it was signed into law rather, by Governor DeSantis to release the criminal grand jury files of Epstein. Circuit Judge Luis Delgado ordered the 16-year-old documents released, writing that details in the record will be outrageous for decent people. Nearly 200 pages of documents have been released containing details of Epstein's crimes, including first-hand accounts from victims and specifics about payoffs to underage victims. And take a look whose name appears over and over and over again in the call log. As one commentator wrote, prior to marrying Melania in January 2005, Trump was calling Jeffrey Epstein in 2004 on the regular. We now have the phone messages between Epstein and Donald Trump, the phone message log. That is, and this is in connection with the West Palm Beach indictment of Epstein that was released on Monday. His messages are in between girls calling to confirm massage appointments and messages from the disgraced modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel. It should be noted that Jean-Luc died by way of suicide in prison in 2022. Just take a look right here of the message logs right here, and you'll see, for example, Donald Trump's name appearing again and again and again, and we see it over and over right there.
And I quote him, "This is what the Democrats do to their Republican opponent who is leading them by a lot in the polls. This is AI, and it is very dangerous for our country. Also, I was never on Epstein's plane or at his stupid island. Strong laws ought to be developed against AI. It will be a big and very dangerous problem in the future," end quote. Here is the problem I have with this, not the AI part, that was awful. I have a problem with what he said because only part of his denial may be true. There is no record of Donald Trump ever visiting Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island, Little St. James. That is clear. But there is plenty of hard evidence that he rode on Epstein's plane, and not just one time, 7 times, at least 7 times. And we know that because his name appears in flight logs that are submitted to the FAA. Here's what they reveal. Trump flew 4 times in 1993. He flew once in 1994 and again in 1995. Those are in addition to a flight that was previously reported and documented in 1997. All of the flights were between Palm Beach and New York City. And the logs show Epstein was on board the plane with Trump as well, each of those times. The 1994 flight is notable because Trump's then-wife Marla Maples is also listed on the flight log. And according to those logs, they decided to bring along their then-infant daughter, Tiffany Trump, as well as the family's nanny. They are all on the log. On the flight in 1995, logs say that Trump also brought along his then 12-year-old son, Eric Trump. So, again, these are documents that are submitted to the FAA. These are not just claims made by someone in a deposition. So it is hard to sort of reconcile when the president says, I was never on that airplane.
And breaking news involving a woman who claims Donald Trump raped her when she was 13.
KCAL 9's Peter Dowd is live in Woodland Hills now, where the woman was set to go public less than an hour ago. Peter.
Yeah, Lena and Juan, definitely some confusion here since that woman who is accusing Trump of raping her when she was a child decided not to appear. Instead, her attorney came out and said that the woman was too afraid to speak. Media from all over the world came out to hear what that woman had to say. Now, this was a planned news conference, but it didn't happen. The woman had filed a lawsuit alleging Trump sexually assaulted her at several different parties in 1994 when she was only 13 years old. Attorney Lisa Bloom said the woman, who has gone by the pseudonym Jane Doe, had received numerous terrible threats and gave a short statement.
Jane Doe has received numerous threats today, as have all the Trump accusers that I have represented. She is living in fear. She has decided that she is too afraid to show her face. She's been here all day, ready to do it, but unfortunately, she's in terrible fear.
Okay, you start and I'm ready.
In the wake of questions and allegations about Donald Trump's behavior towards women, ET discovered this footage in our archive, which we provided to CBS News.
Soon, Thursday night. You're going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it? Okay.
Donald Trump's stretch of bad weeks just got worse. A lawsuit against the presumptive GOP nominee alleges he raped a girl when she was 13 years old. The lawsuit describes a, quote, savage sexual attack in 1994, alleging Trump tied the girl to a bed before raping and hitting her. The woman also claims Trump threatened her family if she told anyone. The case isn't new. It was originally filed without any legal help in April in California, but was dismissed. Her lawyer told the New York Daily News that lawsuit cited the wrong statutes. Trump's denied the claims before, calling them categorically false, adding the allegations, quote, perhaps are simply politically motivated. There is absolutely no merit to these allegations, period. The lawsuit claims the woman was scared to come forward until this year and is requesting the court provide a waiver for the statute of limitations, which for most sexual assault claims in New York would be 5 years.
They lived within walking distance of each other in Manhattan. They partied together. Trump flew on Epstein's planes. Epstein buys a house literally within walking distance, shorter than the distance I walked to school as a kid from Trump. How many kids, not even women, how many kids do you think, and I want you to put it in the comments, Trump and Epstein raped?
All of you MAGA Christians, go Google Trump and Katie Johnson. The original assault occurred in 1994. You've got to read a little bit about it.
The Johnson lawsuit, item 12, reads this way. On the fourth and final encounter with defendant Donald J. Trump, the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, was tied to a bed by defendant Trump, who then proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff Johnson. During the course of this savage sexual attack, plaintiff Johnson loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to please wear a condom. Defendant Trump responded by violently striking plaintiff Johnson in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted as he refused to wear protection. After achieving sexual orgasm, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, put his suit back on, and when the plaintiff, Katie Johnson, in tears, asked defendant Trump what would happen if he had impregnated her, defendant Trump grabbed his wallet and threw some money at her and screamed that she should use the money to get a f***ing abortion.
What do you think of Lindsay Lohan now?
I think she's hot.
There's something there, right?
Yes.
But you have to like freckles. I've seen a close-up of her chest.
Yes.
And a lot of freckles. Are you into freckles?
father's a wreck, like the way he is.
Right.
You imagine the sex with this troubled
Yeah, you're probably right. She's probably deeply troubled and therefore great in bed.
Back in the day.
How come the deeply troubled women,
Yes.
you know, deeply troubled,
Right.
they're always the best in bed? If for some reason what I said is true, I mean, they're just unbelievable. I can tell from the... You don't want to be with them for the long term, but for the short term, there's nothing.
Donald Trump loves a beauty pageant. And by his own admission, he was no stranger backstage while owning parts of 3 different pageants for nearly 2 decades.
They're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
In 2001, Tasha Dixon was Miss Arizona, competing in the Miss USA pageant. She experienced this kind of awkward moment firsthand.
Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked changing into our bikinis.
Dixon was 18 at the time and says watching Trump storm into a dressing room was shocking.
To have the owner come waltzing in when we're naked or half naked in a very physically vulnerable position, and then to have the pressure of the the people that work for him telling us to go fawn all over him, go walk up to him, talk to him, get his attention. Who do you complain to? He owns the pageant. So there's no one to complain to. Everyone there works for him.
In 2005, 4 years later, Donald Trump bragged to Howard Stern about what he could get away with since he owned the pageants. The conversation uncovered by CNN's K-File.
I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it.
You're like
everything
a doctor.
is good.
Later in that same show, Trump is asked if he'd ever had sex with Miss USA or Miss Universe contestants.
Never comment on things like that.
Give us the first letter of the country you had sex with him.
How many letters are there?
This comes just weeks after Hillary Clinton brought up Trump's attacks on former Miss Universe Alicia Machado. Trump once described her as Miss Piggy and then told his Twitter followers to find her sex tape. And another video where Trump is seen interviewing Playboy playmates and basks in the glow of a question from CNN's Jeannie Mose.
Have you ever dated a playmate?
I refuse to answer that question.
On the grounds that it may be true?
It may be true.
Tasha Dixon says she's speaking out so voters can get a better understanding of Donald Trump's personality.
I'm telling you, Donald Trump owned the pageant for the reason to utilize his power to get, around beautiful women.
We also know that Donald Trump's name is mentioned in the Epstein depositions of his trafficking victims. He said they were going to Trump's casino. Epstein told the victim, according to her, in a deposition that she was going to, or that he was going to call Donald Trump and they were going to stop by his casino. Virginia Giuffre, who worked at Mar-a-Lago, ended up being recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. This is an undisputed fact. Jeffrey Epstein introduced a 14-year-old girl she went by the name of Jane Doe. She went under a pseudonym at the criminal proceedings against Ghislaine Maxwell. And she talked about how she was introduced to Donald Trump. That was really what her testimony was limited to, but Epstein brought her over and introduced her to Trump. Trump brought his kids around Epstein all of the time. Epstein was on Trump's plane with a girl of indeterminate age. I wouldn't be able to tell if she was 15 or 20. Another person on the plane said Trump's name appears at least 7 times on Epstein's flight logs. So there's that as well. Donald Trump said that Epstein is a great guy.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and so a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.